to the Braddog Media Show with your host, Brady Hester.
What's going on, guys? Brady Hester here, host of the Braddog Media Show. Today we welcome Hailey Rowe. And through this podcast, you'll actually learn step by step how to gain attention online, how to warm up a lead, how to introduce yourself and actually get into a position where you can have that discovery call and then actually land a client. And Hailey Rowe is definitely an expert in this area, so it's great to be able to bring her on and share that knowledge with everybody today. And if you enjoy the podcast, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I have big guests coming up and I don't want you to miss future episodes. Enough from me. Welcome to the show. Hailey Rowe, what's going on?
Hi there. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Of course, it's great having you. It is great having you. You are the host of Health Coach Nation. You really are huge in helping people, create their own business for themselves and kind of guide them through and be their coach in that way. How did you start getting involved in the coaching game?
Yeah, so I started back in 2010 and I was in wellness. So I was very interested in personal training, nutrition. I was a nutrition specialist. I was very into behavioral change and habits and did a bunch of certifications on that and selling fitness programs. And that was my gateway into entrepreneurship, if you could call it that. And I realized that I really enjoyed sales. I really enjoyed helping people transform. And what I wanted to do, I've always been interested in just control. And so I've always wanted to have my own business. And in college, I majored in entrepreneurship. I started doing some internships and I really realized I wanted to be my own boss at that point. And so I started to work for startups to get some experience in marketing and business development. And I worked for a lot of wellness companies and got to wear many hats and be a part of that. And then I transitioned to, I love wellness and I love business and I love sales and I love marketing. And what I realized was there was a real gap because as somebody who was in certification programs and did coaching programs, like I also did a life coaching program, somewhat you could call it. It was called the Human Potential Institute. And it's a great program. All these programs are great. But the gap is when these coaches finish these certifications, they don't know what the heck to do online to promote their business. They don't know how to grow their business. And because I had the experience working with the startups, was really learning pretty hands-on in that sense. I was like, why not help them with that? Because that's their dream and I wanted to help make the world a healthier place. And I knew I could do that better if I was helping more coaches keep their job and actually be able to do what they want to do. So I shifted to coaching wellness professionals, wellness businesses on their marketing, on their sales, on finding and booking clients. And not to mention, that's way more me than health coaching anyways, I realized also. So I really enjoyed that. And then, so that was about 3 years ago. And that's what I'm doing today. And then most recently within the last year, not 2020, but late 2019, I started a marketing company where we do services for wellness, for businesses in general, but a lot of wellness professionals. And that's where I'm at today.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's interesting because you might be fired up, ready to get into a business that you know so well. It could be in the health field, marketing. You're like, okay, I'm going to be the best, be awesome for my clients. But then it's like, okay, now how do I get clients though? And that's, just as important is actually being good at your job and being able to help people is actually getting the clients in the first place. And it's super challenging. I mean, what are kind of the first steps when it comes to teaching somebody through the client acquisition process?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to just treat it with common sense. So, in other words, we have to compare. There's a couple different parts of your business, like that make up your business, right? There's acquiring potential customers. There's how do you give them value and nurture them. There's the conversion process. So when they're ready to actually take the leap and work with you. And then there's you giving them the service or thing that they signed up for and keeping them, hopefully, or expanding based on referrals and client retention. What's the lifetime value of your client? So when it comes to how does somebody start, you have to understand that process, and you have to understand that it starts with, number one, increasing your traffic of the right people. But number two, you can't just skip into the sale. You have to nurture them. You have to build relationships. You have to have touch points. You have to be thoughtful and relevant and attention grabbing. So my suggestion for anybody who's new is treat it like, as I always say, treat it like dating. You don't have, you don't meet somebody for the first day and say, well, you want to go home with me, or you want to get married, or right? So
Usually not.
Usually not. It depends, but So yeah, I think that that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, that's great. What are the typical issues that people tend to have, when it comes to getting clients? There's so many different ways to go about it. And what are kind of the main pain points that you typically see?
The typical pain points would be they're putting out content that's inspiring and fun and what they feel like talking about, but it's not converting to clients. It's not converting to engagement. It's not converting to lead magnet signups or whatever it is they're trying to do. So when it comes to using social media organically to grow your brand, I'm not talking about paid methods right now, but if you're using it organically, you can't wait for people to just come to you and start engaging with you and start loving you and signing up and understanding everything you do. You have to come to them. So my thing is, when it comes to your content, you always have to think about, what does my ideal client need to hear today? And also, how can I bring value, show up, provide, make new connections, build new relationships today? So I'm a big fan of doing things like, when you do get a new follower, make them feel special, noticed, appreciated, especially if you're in the beginning and you're doing organic marketing. You have the luxury and time to do that. So say something like, hey, thank you so much for the follow. I'd love to hear more about you. Let's say you're a health coach. You could say something like, if you ever have any questions regarding health or wellness, please let me know. I try to make my content super useful, and I'm going live next Tuesday for a Q&A or something like that. Or you could ask a simple question like, what are what's working on any exciting habits this month or something like that. So, you want it to be organic. You don't want it to be this long, unnatural sales pitch, but it is up to you to get in front of people if you're new and you're building from the ground up and you're not using paid marketing methods.
Definitely. And I think too, a big thing is like, put out content with intention. It's not just, okay, here's what I need to do, build a big social media following, put content out, and people will come. There are more steps to it than that. And, going back to kind of that dating process, you need to be the one to engage first and actually build that relationship. It's not like, oh, somebody follows me, they must be interested in working with me right off the bat. That follows just that initial peak interest, but there's so much follow-up that's involved. How do you recommend people kind of build up to pitching to be an actual client from that point?
Right. Well, there's a couple things I just want to add to that. When you said that somebody who follows you, they're not ready for the sale necessarily, you're very right, because in marketing, there's stages we go through. So in other words, if it's a high ticket product or program, people can Google it or research it or something and not be expected to buy it until at least at a minimum 30 to 90 days, typically. So just from like general statistics. So knowing that and knowing that there's different phases, you have to find out which type of person you're dealing with. Are they, number one, just there to research, and they know they have a problem and they're there to research and see if you're the right person to help them? That's a good stage to be in. Are they just researching, like they don't even know they have a problem, they're just kind of like following for fun, their problem's not big enough that they're looking for a solution yet? Or are they in the stage where they know they have a problem, they've researched, and they're like super hot and they think you're the right person for them? So thinking about which category, are they warm, are they cold, are they hot, and trying to cater to that in your content, meaning your content, every piece of content is a first impression for someone, and every piece of content is also, for others, it's something that's continuing to nurture them or take them to the next step. So you want to have a little bit of a balance, never expecting that everybody knows what you do. And that's why I think the biggest mistake in content is either no strategy, but also you need to repeat yourself. You need to say constantly, here's what I do, here's what I offer. And it doesn't have to be in a salesy way. You can do it in very creative ways. One day you maybe have a testimonial about a client success story. Another day you're showing a sneak peek on your computer of the back end of your program. Another day you're making a fun Instagram reel about the top 3 mistakes somebody makes when they're first becoming a health coach, and then your call to action is like, comment yes if you struggle with this, and you're sending them a lead magnet or something. So I can't remember the original question, which I'd like you to re-ask, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so we're getting there. It's and that's all great information as well. So I mean, I was just asking specifically on kind of that transition from getting somebody to your page, but then kind of leading them up to a potential sales pitch.
Right. So this applies in sales calls and in marketing. And that's, you have to find out what are the gaps, or what are their goals, or what are they struggling with, and how can you help them? So you can do that through, for example, if you do send a welcome message and you ask them, do you have any questions about health or wellness, or any way I can provide valuable content? What are you looking for? And they say, I'm struggling with overeating, and you have a old video you made sharing the 3 top ways to overcome overeating, you can send that to them, and that's another touch point. Okay, so now you are providing them some value, you're giving them an experience or a taste of what you do, and then there's the follow-up of, how did that go for you? Do you have any questions about the video, whatever? And then you just keep nurturing that. You might have a couple touch points of just, oh my gosh, something exciting happened in their life. That's acknowledge that, right? And then you just keep checking in, and can invite them to, okay, you checked out the overeating, how's it going? Video, how's it going? They say, great, but I'm struggling with this, or it's going well, period. And then you could say something like, well, do you want to connect for a free intro chat sometime next week to go through some personal ways you can implement the video, or something like that? So I think there's 3 parts. There's the new, like the welcome, there's the nurturing, and there's the invitation. Because at some point you do have to invite them to take the next step with you. And if they don't want it, that's totally fine. But it's not wrong to ask a question of, do you want to check out the lead magnet? I could send you the link. Or do you want to connect for a free intro call? Or do you know a friend who would love this page? So in your calls to action and in your messaging, you can incorporate those invitations.
Yeah, no, that's great. And this kind of relates to, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere around 6 or 7 times are needed, for somebody to see somebody and actually, I forget how it goes, but
it's actually, I think it's like 7 to, according to HubSpot, it's like 7 to 18 touch points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
really
in marketing, they say they need to hear your message 7 to 10 times on average.
that's what it is. There we go. So it's about kind of making, or, having reasons to create those touch points, right? I mean, if you just say, hey, thanks for following, okay, they'll see it, whatever. There's no reason for a follow-up. So then you're kind of starting from scratch again, and, that makes it a little more challenging.
Totally.
And so this kind of all leads up to the dreaded sales call, which, freaks a lot of people out. It's, a pretty nerve-wracking experience, especially if you're new. But you bring it up in an interesting way that doesn't, where it's not technically called a sales call. And I think a lot of people skip this, the important discovery call.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people skip this step, but what would you recommend to people during that first call?
Yeah. So it depends. I do 2 different types of calls. I do intro calls and I do actual discovery calls. Intro calls are just something that's lower pressure. Maybe it's networking. Maybe it's learning about them and how, if you can even help them, just trying to figure out if there is even a need. And they're pretty short. Okay. So it can be 10 to 20 minutes max. And you give them a little value, or you give them a resource, or you give them a mini homework assignment if they said they struggle with something. And then there's also discovery calls. Now, sometimes you don't need an intro call. Sometimes you've been connecting with someone, they said they struggle with something, let's plan a discovery call. But if you're not sure, sometimes it's good to have those intro calls, because again, that's a stronger touch point than just messaging online. Now, when it comes to discovery calls, that's what you just said. You have to discover. You have to find out. And I don't call them outwardly discovery calls in my marketing. Sometimes now those get a bad rep. So I call them whatever, a goal, like a free strategy consult, or if you're a health coach, you can call it a nutrition jumpstart call, or whatever it is relevant to your business. So what you want to do on those calls first is set the stage. So say, hey, thank you so much for connecting today. We're going to talk a little, and I think that's immediately, some people set up the call wrong. Not that it's not wrong, but it's like, oh, dude, like now it's just going to be a weird call. Like, so if you set up the call as like, yeah, we're just going to talk today. I'll let you pick my brain. We'll go through, you can ask me any questions. So what questions do you have? Like, if you open it up that way and you don't have your hands on the steering wheel, it's bad. It's just like when you're in a fitness class and the fitness instructor doesn't tell you, like, we're going to do warm up, and then the way that this works is we do 3 circuits and whatever. You're always just like, it's like, what is this? Right? It's not productive.
Right.
So you want to set the stage and say, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk for blank to blank minutes about your goals. We're going to see where you want to go. We're going to see if I can help in any way. And if it's even a fit, and if it's not, there's no worries here, but we're just going to get to know each other and see what you're looking for, and if I can be of service to you. Does that sound good? And so then you go into, okay, what are their goals? What is holding them back? What have they tried? How long has this been an issue? How urgent is it for them to solve it? And transitioning at some point, if you're finding that, number 1, they have goals you can help with. Number 2, this is a pain point enough for them where they're looking for somebody to help them. If you find those things, then you want to transition to saying something like, okay, so like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, this isn't bothering me that much, I'm probably not going to do anything about it. 10 being, I would like to do something about this. I would like to get support with it. Where do you fall and why? And then positioning, trying to understand what's holding them back, their objections, etc. And notice you still haven't even gotten into your offer. And then when they share with you, I do want to get help with this, then you say, okay, we can talk a little bit more about my framework or how I teach, and you can ask any questions. We can see if this is going to be a fit. And you go into your offer. And when you go into your offer, you don't want to just vomit what the features are. You want to communicate how is it going to help them solve their problem that you talked about earlier in the call,
Yep.
the benefits they want. So the key, and not saving all the objections until the end, you should have an indication of what problems are holding them back from signing up with you to begin with, and be coaching them through that along the way as well. So it's not just all saved until the end where you have this great call. They say they want something. They really seem interested. You share with them the program. And then at the end, they start throwing you all these things and you're at the hour and it's like, oh, we never even, like, there's this white elephant in the room that your husband doesn't support you on this journey at all and is going to say no. Like, that stuff needs to come up. That's why it is a discovery call, because you need to discover what's holding them back.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, geez, going back to, a problem a lot of people do where they, kind of just throw out questions at the beginning, like, what are your needs? What's this? You kind of put the pressure on the client, and you don't want to put pressure on them right off the bat, right? I mean, that just makes it hard on them. They have kind of mixed feelings about you right off the start, and that's a very uncomfortable situation.
It's interesting because, I've had it both ways. I've had it where someone's opened up a call. Like, I'll give an example. I had a call with a Facebook ads agency a long time ago, as I was just kind of trying to gather research, understand if I wanted to go that route. And the guy opened up the call with, all right, so like, what are we doing? What do you want to talk about? What are you, like, completely let me run the show. And I was so caught off guard, and I was actually in the stage I was in where I was like, I'm just truly trying to understand this. I actually kind of liked that change because I was able to be like, well, and ask questions. However, I've also had the other way where it's so nice where somebody actually coaches me and brings out the answers within me. So I'm not saying it's wrong to let somebody else like run the show. And I'm absolutely not saying that, well, let me back up. Regardless, no matter what style call you're going to go with, you have to they should be talking the most, and you should be listening the most. So if they do have a ton of questions and all that, let them ask them, but make sure no matter what, the point is to get listening. And so if you ask the right questions, you're going to get better answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And so now we're getting close to actually pitching a potential client. What type of offer do you recommend that somebody have? And I mean, it's different for everybody, but let's say, for example, a trainer or somebody in the health field. Are there any sort of like free trial offers? Do you recommend that? Or do you recommend, pitching, the payment right up front? So there's so many different ways to frame an offer. Yeah. How do you kind of coach people through that?
I think it depends on your preferences, but the principles have to be the same, meaning you want to lower friction. So in other words, you want it to be kind of like a no-brainer for them to join. So you either have to line that up with giving exceptional social proof, making it an exceptional price, making it an exceptional product, whatever, giving them an out if they don't like it, or a shorter program that's less of a commitment. So however you want to reduce the friction is totally up to you, but you got to do that. The other thing I would say is you want to make sure that it's relevant to them. So if you have multiple offers and you realize that the one they're really just a fit for is a certain thing, only offer that and then be quiet, right? So making sure that your offer is relevant to what they need. And then the last piece would be, so there's friction, is it relevant? And there would also be some kind of thing that shows that if they're not happy with it, there's another, you're going to give them a guarantee or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to talk about the importance of, on your Instagram feed or whatever social media you prefer, the importance of showing that personal side too, to allow people to really connect. I think a lot of times people are always pushy and everything's a sales post. and that's a huge turnoff for people.
Yeah.
How do you recommend people have that mixture, and what kind of balance do you recommend, like when it comes to sales versus information versus personal life?
Totally. So I completely agree that you got to have some personal stuff in there, and the brands that perform the best. And anytime I've worked with a consultant or anything like that, they're like, why you need to do more personal. You need to share your personal life. You need to post pictures with, like on the weekends and stuff. Like, okay. So that, and you need to tell more stories for sure, because people identify with stories.
Yeah.
And that's not my style. Like, I'm super private, and it's just never been my style, but I've had to really learn that to put that stuff out there.
Yeah.
So, and when I follow people, I actually just want the tip. Like, I mean, I like your story, but like, I just want tips. I want quick takeaways. So I'm very unusual when it comes to being a content consumer and having to learn as a content creator to be more vulnerable, do those things. So, what I would suggest is, no matter what, anytime you have content, when you're like, I have very little actual sales posts per se, where it's like, here's what's included, here's how much it costs. Like, I have barely any of those. What I focus on is, no matter what kind of post you're doing, you can always have a one-liner or a little tiny chunk that's inviting them to the next step. That's either the discovery call or the lead magnet or something. Go join your free Facebook group or something, because that to me isn't overly salesy. It just takes them to the next step, and then they're guided once they're in there, or once they're on that next step, to the sale. So sales doesn't take place on social media unless maybe you've had this DM conversation with them and you send them the landing page and blah, blah, blah. But in the actual posts, like, I don't even think you need to really have that many posts that are like, here's exactly the offer and here's the sales post.
Right. I agree.
Now, when it comes to how do you balance information versus personal versus education, there's little, every business coach and person says, like 20% educational posts, 50%. I don't even know, but I don't have an idea for that. My thoughts, I have a content map in my program, and we have types of posts that talk about their struggles. So like struggle awareness posts. There's social proof posts that give you credibility. There's value-based educational posts, and there's personal, engagement-based posts that just are there to get people to know you and build engagement. And I might be missing one, but like, as long as you're hitting up at least one of those each week, you're going to be in pretty good shape, in my opinion. And then with Instagram stories, I think you can get more personal. Like, you can, for every educational mini training or thing that you're doing, you can have 2 or 3 personal. Like, it is good to work those in as well. So that, and the best rule that I could give is, you want to be the person where, for example, if you were going to call someone, you're not that person who, when they think they're going to pick up the phone, is going to be like, oh my God, this person again. So you want your posts, your content on social media to be refreshing and something people want to binge and look forward to, rather than being that one person who always is posting annoying things and like, they're like, oh, I don't want to see this person on my feed again,
Yeah, no, there are definitely people that I follow that I'm a little exhausted with at times, where it's always like, man, they're pushing this, and this. And they might be a great person. It might even be a really good offer, but it's like, man, I know what you do. I'm tired of seeing it 10 times a day, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that definitely happens. And speaking of personal related posts, I happen to notice, I believe on one of your stories, you have a grumpy cat. And I believe he or she just celebrated a birthday.
She's not grumpy though. And yes, she had a birthday this week. She's very sweet. Her name is Margaret. And she's pretty cute.
He has a resemblance to the actual grumpy cat, R.I.P.
I know.
You know?
I understand why you say that, but her personality is not grumpy.
All right, well, fair enough. There is an open space, though, you know, with
That's
the
true.
unfortunate
She
passing
could
of
become
Grumpy
a star.
Cat. So,
I'm not. Yeah.
she needs
I
her
could
own
create her
Instagram.
own. Yes, You know what? I just need one more thing to do, so that sounds great.
Perfect. And we'll tie right back into everything you're up to as well. So,
Yeah.
sounds like a fit.
There you go.
Awesome. I really appreciate you walking everybody through that. I think actually hearing the step-by-step process and all of that is super important. So I know people are going to get a lot out of this podcast. What are you up to, and what can people look forward to from you?
Yeah. So I have a weekly podcast. It's called Health Coach Nation, and I have a Facebook group, and that's where the most fun stuff goes down. So if you go to facebook.com/groups/Health Coach Nation, you don't have to be a health coach to join, but it's really for online service providers, life coaches, people of that nature who are trying to grow their business online. We have trainings in there. We have tons of stuff. So I would definitely check that out. And then if your audience in particular wants my 4-step framework to booking more clients online, they can simply DM me and just say, send me the 4-step framework or whatever you want to send. And I'll get you that as well. And I'm over on Instagram at Hailey, HAILEY _Rowe, ROWE. And then my website's HaileyRowe.com. So those would be the best places to find me.
Awesome. Follow Hailey, follow the Grumpy Cat.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.